Welcome back everyone, the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage here, and I am continuing my investigation series. I have to come up with a name for the series. I've been asked to go over this machine and not overhaul it, but to kind of give it a diagnostic of what I think about it. What's, just poking around to see, is there anything obvious. I noticed that the stitches were inconsistent. Not really a tension issue so much as they were not, I think the thread wasn't feeding properly, and I suspect that had a lot to do with either the way it was threaded originally, or it may have been, like I said, it could have been a needle thread issue. Now, I'm going to take the lid off, and these are the two screws I've loosened. I just need to make sure that that little piece there is not going to be in the way. And by the way, the presser foot is up, because if you lift this and it's threaded, you're going to cause problems if the foot is down. So make sure your foot is up, and we're just going to lay the top right on the back there. And what do you see? You see all of the glorious engineering that was once a hallmark of the Singer Company. This right here, by the way, I was telling you guys when I was looking at the bobbin winder, wanting to hear the motor run, you will see this is where the bobbin engages with the motor. And this is the Bobbin Tire, and the Bobbin Tire looks fine. These tires are bigger than those that are used on, slightly bigger than some of those used on the other Singer machines. So let's get the flashlight here. You guys can see a little bit better. You can see this basically, what am I doing here? You can see if I turn the hand wheel manually, you see what's going on. I don't have this engaged, right? So this is back. So there's actually a gap. It's very thin, but there's a gap between the tire and the shaft, the top shaft of the motor. But if, again, this is, you guys remember when I was testing the bobbin, I had the bobbin on there. When you push in, watch what happens. Now the tire is pushed up against the motor, and of course it spins, which helps, allows the bobbin to wind. Now, if I back off, right? So this is spring loaded. The spring still works, it's fine. It allows some play here, but that's okay because you want to move this to get the lid off. So I'm going to leave that be. The tire is now not permanently engaging. By the way, if this adjustment was off, it could slow the machine down, right? It could really slow it down. It could sap power, and it actually could cause extra stress on the motor or affect its sound, and I'm not seeing that right now, okay? So there is a gap. The tire, you know this because if the tire were engaging, you'd see it move. So the tire is not engaging, and again, it's actually away from the shaft at the moment. Now, I'm going to turn this with my hand. Yeah, and it moves freely, but then it hits a part where it just seems to bind. Not fully. It just, it rotates smoothly, and then it hits kind of it's like a speed bump here, and I'm not sure why. This motor, I mean, there is some grease in here. It needs to be re-greased, but it's not horrible. It's not bone dry. So, what can we do? We see that's the number 0 cam for zigzag, very important. You're not doing any zigzagging without this cam on a 503. And if I go in here, I can adjust I'm pushing on the needle. Let's see if I can show you guys. I'm pushing in. You can adjust the needle position. So far it engages, it doesn't bind. Could this machine use some cleaning and some more oiling? Possibly, but I do see, I don't know if the owner has oiled it or it's been oiled in the past, but it's not dry. So someone has oiled it. It may be the current owner that has, so that's not an issue. And so it's not a dry machine, but there's something going on. It's very possible it could be the bearing or not. This is always like a mystery you're trying to solve here, figure out what's causing what here. I think what I'd like to do is take off the hand wheel, excuse me, the hub of the hand wheel, and we'll see if we can see what we can see. So we are going to lower the camera here. Looks like we're skydiving. And let's turn to the side. I'm going to back up so you guys can see what I'm up to here. So again, you know, I can snug this back, but I don't want the needle to go up and down. We don't need our needle moving for us right now. So I'm going to take this hub, I'm going to take the screw off and make sure that everything underneath here is as it should be. I'm just, again, going to take this off, and we should see on the other side. Make sure you don't drop her on the floor. Now, as I take this off, here's the back side. You can see the set screw there. Now, on this side, this is the washer. See, this is a new design. It's the same principle. It's not really redesigning how bobbin winder disengagement works, but the style of this giant washer is now has been changed, right? They've updated that. Okay, no big deal. That seems, nothing seems strange or amiss here that I can tell. And of course, this can move. Well, I'm not seeing anything that concerns me regarding the clutch mechanism that you use to disengage the drivetrain so you can wind a bobbin. Okay, so we'll be putting this back on since I don't see anything amiss here. So what does that leave us? We've checked a number of things. I haven't really, when we looked underneath, I didn't really see any threads. There could be threads causing a jam, and I'm just, like I say, I haven't seen anything there. Usually, if that's going to happen on these, unlike with the featherweights and the 301s, usually it will be, you know, be going on somewhere here in the bobbin case area. So shine our flashlight down in there. Do we see anything weird or strange? I see no threads. I see no thread tails. It's not as common. It can happen in any machine. You can get a thread jam or thread remnants that bind in any sewing machine. Make no mistake. But I just don't see it as often on these as I would on the featherweights or the 301s because of the way their shuttle is designed. So, well, where does that leave us? My next thought is that there may be something going on with the motor, and I don't know what that is at this point. Let's get our aerial view back up here. Now, let's pull the machine toward us, because I need to getting this view is not easy, but it is, I think, possible. Once we get our, just need my flashlight and a pointer. Okay guys, here is the shaft of the motor. Here is that worm gear that the Textilite hand wheel gear engages. But if you look straight down, okay, at the base of the worm gear, I need a better pointer. Okay, so here's my little pick tool. Watch as I take it all the way down. If you watch here, you'll see me come all the way down till it stops. That's the base of the worm gear right there. It looks like a little round shelf, right? And you can see that because you'll see the worm gear turning, but then this down here doesn't turn, right? That's where your bearing is. Now, I've shown this before, I believe, in other videos. There's a technique you can use to jumpstart the grease, right? There's a couple things you can do. If the bearing needs replacement, you can get replacement bearings on these. I have a spare, but I've never had to replace one before. I do own a spare bearing, but a lot of times the grease is dry, right? So what can we try? There's a couple of things. Remember, when you're dealing with heat, you got to be careful. Watch out for your Textilite gear and your rubber tire here, and any like electrical cords you've got. But there's a way to try to jump start it if in fact it is the bearing and we don't know. So I'll show you what I've got here and what I'm going to use to try to see if it makes any difference. Okay, everybody, so what have I assembled here? I have a couple of things. I have my heat gun, and I have a different kind of oil than sewing machine oil. This is something I use for this purpose only. This is 30 weight non-detergent oil. Okay, it's not typically what is put in automobiles anymore. Some people use it in lawnmowers and other things. But this is not to be used for normal sewing machine points. It's too thick, and you will not like how it performs in your machine. I use this specifically for bearings in these motors because if I put sewing machine oil on the bearing, it's too thin, right? And it can cause leaks. Normally, you want that good sewing machine oil to be thin so it can do what it needs to do. But in this case, we don't want it that thin. We want something like this. Now, I have not removed the motor. The owner of the machine has actually taken the motor out and cleaned the commutator and checked the brushes and so forth. So I'm going to take this. This is where right here, there's where the bearing sits. Okay, and I'm going to put one drop. There we go. And I'm going to put one more. And that's it. I don't need a lot. You don't want a lot. Remember, we're dealing with motors here, so you want to be extra careful. The point of this is not to put any oil in the motor, but that's where the bearing line is. So now I'm going to take my trusty heat gun on low. These heat guns get so hot, you really don't want them on high unless you're using them for some extreme purpose here. Okay, so I'm going to simply put this on here and focus the heat just in this one little area. It's not going to be getting super hot, right? Because I've got my Bobbin Tire, I've got my Textilite gear. Just want to get it a little bit warm. And if we need to, we can always take the motor out. But, you know, the motor is sitting upright at the moment, so it's in perfect position for applying this oil. I'm not really using a lot. I don't need a ton of heat here. I'm not heating it to some super high level. What I'm trying to do is temporarily thin that oil I just put down in here. Temporary, because it will thicken back up, which is what I want. And I want it to seep down into the bearing. And then, in so doing, what else do I want it to do? I want that oil to go in and combine with the old grease in the bearing to see if we can kind of wake it up or jump start it. Now, when I turn this, still getting a little bit better, you know, but I'm still getting right here. I'm getting some resistance here. So again, it could be a motor issue, not sure, because the machine looks oiled. You know, I don't believe the machine is dry, because I think the current owner has lubricated it. But I suspect we have some issue going on with the motor. It could be the bearing or something else. Or it could be nothing related to the motor at all. This is a true troubleshooting, and you're watching me do it live here because I don't really yet know what's causing this, but it's not normal. You're going to get, you know, there's some play in here. It was designed for it, right? There's play in this between the hand wheel and the worm gear of the motor. Again, exactly why it's behaving this way, I don't know. If any of you have an idea what it's doing, feel free to share that in the comments. So anyway, the search goes on to see what we can do to fully get this Rocketeer ready to go. It's a magnificent machine, a tour de force in 1958, and one of the last of the great all-metal Singer sewing machines. If I ever have one of the early touch and sews, which are part of the 600 series, I'll make a video on those, because they are sort of the last hurrah before Singer began to introduce plastic into its drivetrain, but not on this model. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you all watching and following along on this Rocketeer. Haven't had one in a while, but they are mostly, for the most part, they are aesthetically different than the 400, but they do have some technological differences as well that I've been going over in one of the installments of this video. So yeah, so if any of you have questions or comments about the Rocketeer, do you like it better than the 400? Most people make their decision based solely on aesthetics, because functionally, you know, they're not that different. Yeah, the bobbin winder is different, plug is different, but in terms of how well they sew, they're pretty much the same animal, right? Just a different set of clothes for the most part. And people really love these machines, and I think a lot of people buy the 500 series for the styling alone, you know. And, you know, to each his own. We all have our favorite looks. Mine, you know, I change mine. I'll fall in love with the way a machine looks, buy it, think, oh, this is the one I'm going to keep, and then someone wants to buy it, they buy it, and then I find something else. But anyway, guys, I so appreciate you watching and following along with these videos. Again, sometimes troubleshooting is really a mystery, and it's a puzzle that you have to solve. We've gone through and done a number of checks here. Normally, when I go through an entire machine and fully overhaul or restore it, I know a lot about it because I've gone through every system, and I can kind of, you know, by the process of elimination, realize what's not causing the problem. And that eventually normally can help you figure out what is causing it. But anyway, we've gotten the stitching a little bit better. We'll give that oil time to soak into the bearings, and then we'll see. I'm going to talk to the owner and see what they think, if they'd like me to go further, and we'll take it from there. I really appreciate you all watching.